we've added a co-host. His name is Craig, and he is by far the most invaluable member of the team, I'd say.
Yeah, he's a mute robot, but he hears everything and has a great memory. Do you want to explain why we hired Craig?
Oh man, we were doing so good last time. So, okay, for those listening, we lost I think 47 minutes of recording last time. And there were some explicitives? What do you? Expletives. There were some words. And I wish I'd recorded that because that would just be our open. But basically, what happened is the connection cut out because we have both, as far as I'm aware, on shared complex, like apartment complex Wi-Fi. And just, not the best connection ever. It works fine, but every once in a while. And so what I did was I went to try and change my inputs because sometimes when I can't hear people, it's because it's output is going to the wrong place or input is going to the wrong place. I don't know. So I fiddled around with it. And Logic, being the professional software that it is, as soon as it detects a different input, it will alert you. There's a notification that pops up like, warning, this is a new input, and it's really annoying, and I tried to turn it off in the past. But for whatever reason, when we did this, I got that alert, and then also Logic just immediately crashed. And so I lost my side of the audio, and Gil still had his, which leads us to our current situation where we have installed, or I say installed, but this is the easiest thing in the world. I tweeted at the guy that made this because I have never seen a better tool. And it even says on the website that Craig is for podcasting and stuff. So what it does is you have a Discord chat, which uses the best codec. I think it's this gold standard of a codec called Opus, right?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I just learned all this, but I think Discord and a few others are using this. I don't think Skype does. I don't know, but Discord does well. Is my whole point here. It's for game chatting, and it's got a little latency. It shows you the latency and everything, so it works well. We can post messages. I like Discord, and what Craig does is he is just basically another person in your Discord, but he's a bot. And this is what bots in Discord, I think that's just generally how they work. But he is automated so that basically you can just give him 2 commands, right? So you just invite him to the Discord server, and then you can say join and you can say leave. And if you join, if you say join, he will join into the voice channel and just listen to everything. And he records it. And the amazing part is that he will record things as separate tracks. So Gil's track will be recorded, my track will be recorded simultaneously, so we don't even have to time it with Craig, but we're still going to record it with Logic because the one thing is that Craig, I think, is just listening to the whatever Discord hears. So if we have a connection drop or if Discord is compressing the sound, which I think it is, Craig's just recording that. So still we got to record it with Logic, but Craig is an amazing backup. And yeah, it just records it for, I think, up to 6 hours, and then it hosts it online. So even if my computer got hit with a freaking sledgehammer, it would still be there. And you can just download it. And it even, if I'm understanding correctly, it'll even level the audio for you so that you don't even have to worry about that. And so just amazing tool. So glad I found it. So very angered at Logic and I guess mostly pretty much just Logic. But we have an awesome solution here, I think, now.
Yeah, and Craig is free. Logic is $200. I don't understand how Logic can just crash like that, supposedly being professional software. But Craig is completely free, right? Are there, what's supporting this? Do you know?
It's free. It's open source, actually. The code is posted. So even if this guy disappears off the face of the earth and he gets bored about it, it doesn't even matter. People can make this continue to happen, and I think they would because it is pretty darn useful.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of these beautiful things that someone from the internet has created. He's like a YouTuber too. We'll link to this guy because I need him to get as much exposure as possible because I love this. But he doesn't even have that many subscribers. So I'm sure he's just he's doing this for fun. He's got something else going on in his day job kind of situation. But yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool. You've been doing all the work on this, but it seems like it's going to be a lifesaver because I've lost audio. Like I've lost my side of the track once before too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I think this is an amazing backup. I just want to use it as primary because Logic is also like a huge amount of data on my system and all kinds of complications. But for the best audio, I think we got to keep using it. And I think that's about all I have to say about that. It was a traumatic experience.
I guess we can go right into follow-up then. So a lot of this might sound like we've said this before, and it's because we have. So if it sounds rehearsed, it kind of was. But we had a vote. So last week's vote was for the better product idea. Mine being the friend finding app and yours being the infinite trampoline. The much more fun of the two ideas being yours. So although we got no votes on Twitter, I'm gonna crown you the winner on last week.
See, it's so hard for me to be sincere. I thought I was really sincere last week because I was like, no. You can't just crown me the winner, and we'll play for fun until we get to people that are really going back and forth about this. But I already said that now, so I feel weird about saying it again. But anyway, yeah, that'll be a practice run, I think.
Yeah. Last time we also talked about doing, like, until we get listeners, we can post the challenges or whatever, the voting into just subreddits and just let people vote there, just to make things a little bit more interesting. Or we can just save all of our voting until we have some faithful or some dedicated listeners.
Quick side note. So, yeah, like we said, we lost the last audio. Gil sent me his audio and I went through it and I kind of did a little transcript just to get key points. But the new thing here that I want to mention that I didn't have on my show notes before but has since become a development is a little bit in this region of what I call kind of follow-up / random apps, basically. Pretty much it's always apps, whether it be Twitter, Reddit, or whatever. And we're going to get to Reddit in a second. But the new thing here is Castro, which is the podcast player that I listen to or that I use.
Yeah.
Has added a cool feature called side loading. And I didn't use it because I don't subscribe to their premium thing right now. But what it allows you to do is if you have something in iCloud Drive or whatever, you can just upload any audio and use it in the Castro player with the skipping and the playback speeds and everything. And I think that's super cool.
Yeah, I use Overcast, and Overcast does a similar thing for their paid model. I'm not quite sure how Castro works. You said something about uploading it in iCloud, so I don't know if it's just like an iCloud folder that's named something. But for Overcast, you have to log on. You have to go online and upload it into the website. So it's not super easy to use, but I have done it for some lectures and stuff like that.
Castro lets you just this thing with the iCloud folder now. I haven't used it at all, and I deleted the app that Apple has it's that little folder thing that's they're trying to have a file system on iOS.
Yeah, I do use that so I have whatever it is, 2 terabytes of iCloud storage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I store all of my stuff. There's nothing, the only directory on my laptop is in iCloud, and then all the organization goes on in there. So there's images and documents and things like that. Just so everything is always backed up to the cloud, and I can also access it anywhere. So there are lots of times where I'll need a file and I'll go into the Files app and I'll do it. And then it also brings in Google Drive and Dropbox, so I can just see all of that in one app. So I do use it and I do like it. There are some improvements that I think could be made, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. But
I was just listening to a podcast. I think it was Canvas. So it was Mike Hurley's Canvas on relay.fm. And I was just kind of half listening while I did stuff. But one thing that stuck out is that if you have a couple dozen folders up to maybe 100 folders, see, I haven't used it, so I'm not super aware of the specifics, but like it becomes very inconvenient. It's not fully flushed out like a like a Mac or just PC file system. So there's ways to go.
It's treated like a normal file system on desktop, but I guess there are some cases where like maybe something is local trying to talk to something in the iCloud folder, but it's like doing this thing where it's trying to save space, so it's not downloaded to the actual computer. And I'll run into like weird issues where I have to like go into the file system and download it and then try to make the connection. Like it doesn't just trigger that when it's being fetched or whatever. But on the iPhone, I've only really used it for like quick file stuff, so I haven't used it too intensely. And I know Mike is like a power user when it comes to like the iPad and working on the iPad, so I haven't used it in any sort of working capacity.
Yeah, I love the idea that we're transitioning to iOS being the only operating system that you need. And it's as a person that has, I just do weird things, right? And it's going to be a while because like just a couple days ago I needed to like just cut lines in half in Adobe Illustrator, and some like Adobe has this feature where you can upload scripts, and some person wrote a script and I like through forums and whatever, so it like a thing has to exist for a while before I really get power user functionality out of it. And I tried even to find like a vector drawing type software the other day, and there are a few that kind of get the job done, but I really want like AutoCAD or Autodesk Fusion 360, which I love and it runs on the Mac, and AutoCAD runs on the Mac too, actually. That on a phone. So when we get there, that'll be beautiful.
Yeah, I use a desktop app similar to Illustrator called Graphic. I don't even know who it's made by. I can send you a link for the show notes, but I've been using that as my kind of Illustrator replacement. It's just a cheaper version, but does like 90% of the stuff you need it to do. But I'm pretty sure they have a fully built iPad app also. It's probably like $20 or something, but
yeah, I'll do a little shout out here to Affinity Designer, and they also have like a Photoshop equivalent that I don't remember the name of right now. But it runs, so it's $50 flat, no subscription junk. I think you maybe pay for the iPad version if you want it too, but there is an iPad version, which is really exciting for me because just the ability to do vector graphics in a way that is very similar to Illustrator and a lot of ways better than Illustrator is really powerful stuff. So those guys seem like the future to me, and it just looks beautiful. Whereas Adobe, being kind of ported from Windows, it doesn't look Mac-like. So
yeah, I don't have a whole lot of experience with Illustrator. I've used Photoshop a little bit, but I just use like similar things. I use Graphic for my Illustrator, and I use something called Pixelmator for my kind of Photoshop replacement. Well, I was going to bring up, and we can follow the kind of the agenda, but just to mix it up a little bit to maybe something we didn't talk about last time, or definitely something we didn't talk about last time, is I've been really busy today reorganizing my home screen on my phone. I just want to talk about that just for a little bit. So I'm going to send you a screenshot.
Is it different than the other screenshot?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you sent me one earlier in the day, but I'm all ears here. Let me see it. Let me add it. For people, so I'll just sum it up here. Evernote changed their logo, and I'm pretty sure it's still green, right? Like, wasn't it green before?
It was green background with a gradient, and then I want to say the like elephant was white, and now it's kind of reversed, more flat. It's got a white background, and the logo is green with no gradient.
Okay, but it's like green is still the one color that is not like black and whitish, right? So it's not like they changed the color altogether.
Yeah, right.
But with the way that you have your home screen organized, which is, people that are listening may be aware, CGP Grey, this is kind of his method, and he has, it just looks nice, but it is a lot of work because if one app changes its color scheme, or if you want to add an app, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, so Evernote changed their logo or their icon, and it kind of created a waterfall effect of me reorganizing my screen, also changing a few apps just to like try and fit this. So, do you see that now?
I see it. Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing that I changed is my Twitter app. So before I was using Tweetbot because the native Twitter app doesn't do chronological order, but Tweetbot's logo is like kind of ugly. And now that Evernote has like a white background, I'm trying to transition to more white backgrounds, like as many as I can, because without it, the way it was before, those things were like more balanced and the white didn't really stand out so much. But I guess Evernote was like the tipping point between like so much of it is white that they should all be white.
I was gonna say there's just a tremendous amount of white going on here, and of all things, so are you not like Overcast has alternate logos, right?
Yeah, and I did play around with that. It only has the one alternate, the dark mode, where it's like a blue and a like a dark gray. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have like a white out version. I would basically want what the Overcast logo is in orange, except for the orange
I see
around the rim. I would like that to be white to kind of match everything else. So as you can see here, I'm down to 4, maybe 4.5 if you include maps of icons that are not most like white background.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just nothing I can do about those. But I was able to make it look what I think somewhat decent. CoinStats used to have this thing where you could do custom apps, but it no longer does. I've been looking for it forever, and I'm like trying to contact them.
Custom icons.
Yeah, so basically what you could do is you could make any currency or any coin like a custom icon out of that.
Oh, that's clever.
So I just had it like a Bitcoin logo and on white before, but now they're forcing you to use this. So I know that they've done it before. I'm trying to ask them to bring that back. I just switched back to Reddit, which I'm liking a lot. So without them allowing multiple icons, which I can see them doing, but they haven't yet, and it's been a year or two or whenever this came out. So I would like to see that soon. Again, same exact logo, maybe just solid color alien.
You were on Apollo before, right?
Right, yeah. And then Transit I use every day. So, and I never see them changing theirs, but it's not so bad because it's still just green and white.
Okay.
So yeah, so I've switched to, I was been looking for a new Twitter app because the old one didn't fit anymore. It fit in like the icon scheme anymore, as well as Fantastical didn't really fit into the icon scheme. So I was trying to find replacements for those. Fantastical, I just ended up going with the native calendar app. I'm fine with that. I prefer Fantastical, but this looks nicer, so I'm going with this.
You are on the... See, this is what I wouldn't let happen to myself. And it did for a little bit because I have this white, white scheme going on. And you're choosing the apps that you use based on how good it makes the home screen look?
Yeah. I don't see any other option because I just couldn't get over the fact that like there was just this kind of hovering icon that just didn't look right. And I know CoinStats especially stands out, but I'm like somewhat hopeful that I can get that changed. But I know Fantastical is never going to change. And I don't use it as I don't use it for the exclusive features as much as I used to, mainly being the layout was better when I first started using it. Now the calendar app does that where it's kind of the split screen thing. And you could just do like natural language for creating the events, which I know is there and I use sometimes, but it doesn't get it exactly right or it doesn't do everything. So I have to go into the settings anyway to like change the, like when the reminder happens or something like that. That's the big feature that I liked. I also prefer the layout, but it wasn't enough for the home screen being always looking like this. And when I don't go into the app that often, I mainly use it from the widget.
But yeah, Fantastical, it's one of those apps that, it just doesn't do enough for me. And like everyone loves it, and I try it out, and I'm like, yeah. And the other one that's, I think, even kind of a similar UI is Due, D-U-E, and it's like it's timers, and yeah, you can set them like a little bit faster because it has kind of a plus minus type interface.
I use Do, as you can see there in the thing. That's probably one of my most used apps. It's like I really do like that. I couldn't replace that with anything.
Yeah, I've installed it about like 20 times. Not even an exaggeration. And every time I install it, it's like the settings reset, and I gotta change all the things again.
Yeah.
But yeah, Gil, I have 5 things that I want to question/comment on here.
Okay. Well, I've changed 2 other apps. Do you want me to go through those, or let me complete the home screen arrangement, and then we'll get into.
Are you gonna send me another picture, or?
No, it's still this. This is the only screen. The second screen there is just Singularity. But I also got rid of Mint and Kindle because I bought a Kindle, so I mainly use that now. I don't use the Kindle app anymore. And Mint wasn't like a necessary thing to be out, so I've replaced it with the grocery list and Sesame. And Sesame is the app that opens my front door, so I do use that a lot. So those are all the changes that I've made to the home screen to get it to this point. I just need a few more apps to allow me to change their icons, and then I think I'll be happy.
Okay, 5 things in rapid succession, and then you just comment on the ones that you want, because I've got a lot built up here. So number 1, what I think Apple should do is they should have a obscure, kind of buried, system-wide thing where it's just like you can upload your own icon for apps, right? Forget this like apps creating their icons you get to pick. Just allow the user to upload it, bury it so that most people will never use it, but like let us have it. And I know Apple doesn't operate like that for whatever stupid reason, but that would be amazing. Just a compromise on, not allowing full custom springboards like Android, but also, allowing people to really do some powerful stuff here.
Yeah.
Number 2, just to comment here at the top, you have the little dots and the folders and things. And I just want to point out for people that might be confused that like if you tap on one of these, so it needs a name, right? So this is like fairly popular now. And again, CGP gray is the reason for it, I think. But basically just this hides apps that you don't use. And then each app at the one app in the top left corner is what, like symbolic of the other apps. And then like the most used app in the category.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to point that out for people. 3, what I think you should do, regardless of what Apple does, is, well, I mean, I like your background, and I think you even took that yourself, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to say do this, but with as much white as you have going on, to have a white background that possibly even removes the bar at the bottom that holds those 3 apps, and it's kind of blurry.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So there are some wallpapers that will just eliminate that bar, and that's what I'm doing. And with as much white as you have, I think that could look really good. But then, other problems.
I'll play around with an all white background. I've done all black. That was what it was before I took this picture. I've never done all white though.
Yeah, I wanted all black, but for some reason, it's kind of a glitch that lets you do the all white and remove the bottom, like drawer area.
Yeah.
And like black just doesn't work, so I went with white, and it actually works pretty good because again, a lot of apps have white background and then they just seamlessly blend in. Night is not great, but I have a little shortcut where, for people that aren't aware, so I have it set up. You can go in and you can make, well, okay, I don't know how this works on iPhone 10, but for everything else, you can make a triple click, do like an accessibility feature, and so I have mine set to do, when you triple click, I used to do negative, and that was pretty good. But now I've figured out that I can just make it go into a custom like color filter. I forget the word exactly, but in settings and accessibility, you can like make basically just super red filter. And so I have it triple click set to super red, which is like really good for night vision. And it even as white as my screen is, it looks really good if I just triple click now. But my other 2 things are these apps. So Bluebird, is that a Twitter alternative? And why does it have an hourglass on it?
Yeah, there's a lot. So I tried the native Twitter app. I tried Twitterific, and then obviously I already had Tweetbot on there. The native Twitter app has ads and it's not chronological, so that was quickly thrown out. Tweetbot has the bad icon that wasn't fitting in. Twitterific has a worse icon, but there were some things that I liked about it, but the menu bar is at the top of the screen, so I couldn't really get past that. It needs to be at the bottom of the screen, especially on the iPhone 10. So then I was thinking back to, and we've talked about this before, but there was an app called Flitter. And this was an app that somebody built and posted on Reddit, like a Redditor built. From what I can tell, he's like an indie developer. And I stopped using it because it was really buggy, and it also wasn't in chronological order. But I looked for it again to see if it had made any updates. I couldn't find it, and apparently it's been renamed Bluebird. So I'm assuming Twitter didn't like the name Flitter or something like that, and he had to rename it. But I was able to find it again, like in my, like I couldn't find it anywhere. So I had to go into like my previously purchased apps and like try and find it in there, and I ended up finding it. It's much less buggy now. There are like a weird thing when you load it. It just like won't always load the new tweets when you refresh. But the Twitter icon, but the icon looks much better. You also have an option of like 10 different icons to choose from, and it is in chronological order now. So I ended up going with Bluebird.
I do like that icon.
Yeah, and there are lots of different options too to fit in. I know you have the all white thing going on, but yeah, it gives you lots of options.
So how confident are you that this app still exists in the store?
Well, it's been updated somewhat recently, so I'm pretty confident.
Okay. Well, I was going to say that what's weird and dumb, and I guess kind of makes sense, I guess, is that if you go through the App Store and you click on that part, I forget how you get there, but you find yourself and it says like previously downloaded or something like that. You can download apps that have been like removed from the store that are no longer, like you can't find them by searching for them, but because you downloaded them at one time, they're available to you. And it's really like freaky.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. I want to say this grocery app isn't in the store anymore. I don't know. I have used apps like that though, and I just continued to use them until I found a good enough replacement. But I did just find it again. It was updated a week ago, and it is still in the store.
Well, what's up with that hourglass?
So the hourglass is, and this can maybe lead into the whole iOS 12 debacle that I went through last week. But this is a feature in iOS 12 where you can set app limits, and I have my social media apps limited to 30 minutes a day. So I've reached my allotment of social media apps, and it grays out Bluebird.
I was going to say, why is it gray? I thought you were just like clicking on it when you screenshotted. Okay, so it changes the title of the app to have a little hourglass?
Yeah, it puts a little hourglass next to the name, and then it grays out the icon.
That feels like it was probably a lot more convenient for them to do in beta, but like, what if your name is right on the edge and then it pushes it into ... and then I wish that hourglass was imposed like in the corner of the app icon or something.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's kind of neat. I guess I didn't know it did that.
Yeah, so it kind of stops you before you accidentally click on it, and then if you accidentally click on it, you get a screen that says, give me 15 more minutes or something.
Do you know, will it... So, like, they're recognizing here that you shouldn't use it anymore today. Does that mean that they won't push, like, a notification badge up there, or do they still give you that?
Yeah, it turns off the notification badges. You don't get any notifications from it, and when you open it, you just get a white screen that says you've reached your limit on Bluebird.
I'll be very interested to see how this plays out. I had a screenshot that maybe I'll try to dig up for the show notes here, but somebody was commenting, I think in Reddit or something, and it was basically like, yeah, I hit my limits, but then I just kind of hit dismiss on the little screen. And I just think, like, we're not doing anything here. And we discussed it before, but, like, people are going to do what they want, and a very minor barrier, I'm not sure what is it going to do.
Yeah, but, I mean, if they did make it, like, impossible for a day to do it, people would get mad about that. It's like, if you're actually trying to not use social media as much, and then actually, like, just have a little, like, constraint and, like, self-motivation to not click on it when you've reached your limit that you've set for yourself. Otherwise, just turn it off. Why is it even there? Okay.
Well, you've recovered then from... you've recovered from Evernote changing their icon.
Yeah. There was also lots of reorganizing just in, like, where the apps go to. So what I've kind of landed on is obviously the folders in the first row. The second row is like anything for outdoors. So I've got weather and then 3 different navigation apps. The third row are like notes type apps. I'm counting Instapaper as notes because it's more or less like short things that I just want to read. The last row is consumption, and then like the second to last row is just kind of everything else.
I don't know, Gil. I think you're like down a path that leads to insanity where like, you'll want an app on the home screen that doesn't fit in one of those categories and is like a bad color and just you'll go insane.
Well, I'm dealing with it a little bit because like I said, the second to last row is the catch-all, and also my blue apps are split up. So I've got music and Bluebird in the bottom left, and then I've got Simple Note and Grocery X, which is like a blue and then like a purple, and like in the top right. Other than that, I've got all the colors mostly touching each other, except for those 2 groups. I'm just gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah, the singular thing that I miss from Android, it used to be 2. I might have said this before, but I missed Google Keyboard, but now it is on iPhone. And I really miss custom home screens. That was amazing. But what are you going to do?
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be too difficult for them to allow the app maker to like, you always have to upload a pure white version of your logo with like a transparent background, a pure black version, or maybe like a branded color version. And then you upload the version of the logo that you want to show as default. And then that way you can change your background to whatever you want. I can make all of my icons the logo that they specified with a black background and a white icon, or with a white background and a black icon, and like have some sort of situation, or maybe colors down with white icons on all of them, or all red icons, or whatever I want it to be. Like there is a simple way for them to implement that without making it completely open. But I don't see them doing that.
Yeah, I don't, but it would be good. This is Apple making everybody have pretty designs whether they like it or not, even though like for some people it leads to kind of worse design if you're really trying to be active about it and have a great design.
Yeah, I had to change my carrot icon to black and white too, which I'm not completely sold on yet. It
looks good.
Okay, cool. I have it next to Instapaper, so it's got the black and white, and then under that is calendar, which is like black, white, and a little bit of red. I don't know. I'll probably be playing with it, but...
Well, Gil, talk to me about the other iOS disaster, which is, I don't know any details. Something about iOS 12, something.
For the past few months, maybe about a month, actually. Month and a half. I've been stuck on iOS 12 Beta 6, and I haven't been able to upgrade to Beta 5. And then last week I started really having problems, or maybe 2 weeks ago, with like my AirPods kept randomly disconnecting. Apps started to crash. It wouldn't even let me into the Messenger app sometime. It would just be pure white. It wouldn't allow me to update any apps, so I just had 40 apps that weren't able to be updated, and I had to keep like individually click on each one saying like stop the download, because otherwise I just couldn't use them or upload them or update them. And then I also wasn't even able to shut off the phone using the shut off button. I had to go into settings, find shut off, and shut it off.
Wow.
So wasn't letting me do anything.
I didn't know you could shut off by settings.
Yeah, well, luckily you can. But like everything was just locking down. So I spent like an entire day. I had to make sure I had a solid backup of my phone. I had to wipe it and back it up to iOS 11. And then I had to re-update to iOS 12 Beta 6, which is the current version. And then I had to install my backup onto Beta 6. And it took all day, but it's finally working again, and we'll see when Beta 7 comes out if it works, but it was quite the process.
So question. We are in public beta now, correct? Do you have something different than public beta?
I'm using the developer beta.
Okay, so what? Like so at first just developer beta. Actually, I don't know. Is the public beta available from the get-go, or it takes a little longer to kick in?
I've never used the public beta. I want to say it's probably available a little bit later on. I know it's a more stable version of what the developer beta is. So I would assume it comes out maybe after like beta 2 or something. I'd have to double check that.
Okay. Well, it's just interesting that it seems like whether it comes out simultaneously or is delayed, eventually Apple runs two separate betas, which is a lot of work, a lot of intensity there, but okay.
Yeah, I'm sure they're using them for different things. Maybe they'll use the developer comments, but then they'll also maybe compile the regular beta user like tickets and then test the fixes of those things on the developers before they push the next update for the public beta. That's all completely guessing, but I would assume they have some sort of like life cycle like that. But I have signed up for the shortcuts beta, so I'm just waiting for that invite so I can finally start using shortcuts.
Oh, see, look, there's this whole little world of beta. So I've been listening to podcasts and kind of looking it up, but I didn't know that you had to explicitly request shortcuts. It doesn't just pop up?
No, you have to log on, and I don't think the shortcuts is available for the public beta, but you have to like go into developer.apple.com and you get your list of available downloads, and one of them is to request access to the shortcut beta.
Interesting. So just to recap here, not recap because we lost the audio, but this is a part that we did talk about and have lost. And I re-listened and, it didn't interest me that much. So my overall summary here is that, like with Twitter, I have unsubscribed from everything on Reddit and am now relying on 4 multi-Reddits that each have, between like 3 to 10 subreddits in each. And basically just, I kind of like it because when I open the app, there's nothing and I don't like hitting a feed, right?
Yeah. Obviously you were here for this conversation, but the listeners weren't. But I was talking about how I had just switched from that method. So what I did before was I didn't unsubscribe to everybody like you did. I just completely ignored my home screen. So I was using, so before I was using Apollo, and that lets you choose your home screen. So I'll just choose my like most used multi-Reddit, and then I would just kind of look into the different multi-Reddits. But I was running into the issue where I would want to subscribe to a subreddit that didn't really fit in a multi-Reddit, and then I'll have to like remember which multi-Reddit or like maybe it would fit into multiple ones, and I'd have to remember which multi-Reddit it was put in if I wanted to look at that specific subreddit without like typing it in or looking through a long list. So I've recently switched to subscribing to subreddits that I'm interested in and then unsubscribing from subreddits that I'm not interested in, and I have a bulk of my use now in the native Reddit app on the home screen, and then I'll go over to the news tab for news, which is slightly more specific and was like kind of solving another use case of me looking for a news app, but allowing Reddit's algorithm to like guide me through all the subreddits that I've subscribed to.
Well, I think that's how you're supposed to use it, and I think Reddit does a good job of allowing you to do it that way, and even bonus points to them for on their default app. I don't think you can do this on the web client, but on the app you can subscribe to subreddits, but you can also favorite subreddits, and they just kind of are basically pinned to the top when you look at all of the things you're subscribed to. And I really appreciate that because that's just a nice thing that I haven't seen YouTube do or Twitter do. Like nobody has this kind of like short list of things that you're most interested in. So I like that. And then another thing that we talked about before was just basically Reddit seems to very obviously be trying to be like a traditional social network. So of course there's the algorithm and, how much are they going to make it try to just draw people in with things that they think are interesting to them. And they seem to be doing all right about that. But the other part is that you now get like recommendations of like people to follow and subreddits to follow. And that's not as bad, but I still rather really would just not see that. And
Yeah. I'm really annoyed by the people to follow recommendations, but I have found some subreddits that I like through there. But it like shows up too often to where it is still annoying. Like it's not good enough to be showing up as often as it does.
Yeah. But to your point about sort of how to do Reddit, right? So you have, I think we discussed last time, quite a few. And at that point, I'd say, yeah, just subscribe to everything and don't worry about multis. I have maybe like a dozen to 2 dozen different Reddits that I'm interested in. And a lot of that is just Elon Musk related ones. So what I have is 4 multi Reddits, and my rule of thumb is either have it all one topic. So like the Elon multi Reddit that I have is just 10 different subreddits that are like exclusively Elon Musk topics. And then the other ones that I have are basically just not one particular topic, but you can easily distinguish. So I have vexillology, which is flags, and watches, and data is beautiful, right? So those are like, no matter what, you can always tell whether it's a flag or a watch or
Yeah.
like a graph chart thing. So I like that, or otherwise have it just one very specific topic like Elon Musk. So that's been my strategy right now, and it's been working pretty well.
Yeah, I'm subscribed to a lot more subreddits, and that's what was causing my issue because I'm subscribed to maybe 50 or more, maybe even more subreddits because I'm doing things for like whiskey, or I have like Seattle, like a few Seattle subreddits. I've got a lot of things like data is beautiful, a lot of the like advertising porn, design porn type ones, and then just like some interesting ones or funny ones, or so I'm subscribed to quite a lot. I'm not as strict on what's being shown to me because I kind of trust, like I said, the Reddit algorithm to filter the good stuff to the top, and for the most part, I can scroll Reddit all day long and I'll be fine. I'll be interested.
Mm-hmm. And with that, I guess we can give a brief recap of the Reddit redesign poll, which we both put in our show notes without each, like, the other realizing. So I guess it's something we should talk about.
Yeah, I'm having trouble pulling it up right now. But essentially what it says is like 5 to 10% of the people polled. Admittedly, it's a poll of only 375 people, but 5 to 10% of those people actually enjoyed using the subreddit more, or the new Reddit design more than the old design. But it was something like 50% like absolutely hated it and avoided it at all cost. And the younger you get, the more you like the redesign. And also, for whatever reason, men tended to enjoy the redesign more than women. So I guess they're a little more nostalgic to the old version, which I found kind of interesting. But it's also like, I don't know. It's weird talking about all this again, but
yeah,
I consider the new Reddit as not finished still. It does load slower. I know that's the thing that you really don't like about it. It's also doesn't have all the features yet that the old redesign had. There are a few bugs. It's got some quirks here and there. But all of these, I think, are things that can be fixed. And the original CEO is now the CEO again, and that's when all these changes started happening. And I have some like respect for him and kind of his ideas and how I think he'll treat Reddit. So I trust him a little bit in making sure that this is done right. But I do think it was launched a little bit prematurely. They should have ironed things out more, especially knowing Reddit and knowing how much Reddit hates change. I mean, the site hasn't changed in 15 years or whatever since it launched. So to do a complete redesign and not have it like 100% built out just seems a little weird to me. But overall, I do like it a lot. It just needs to fix a few things.
Yeah. To reiterate on myself from last time, I don't know if it's real. I haven't tested it, but there is perceived latency. And last time, I feel like we went on a while, so I'll just sum up like I don't like latency. At some point, your interaction with a computer becomes like an extension of yourself. And so to have what is generally not super perceivable latency, but still there, is a big deal to me. Like, I'll pretty much do anything to avoid that. And yeah, I kind of feel it with the redesign. So I drift towards the old one. And that's pretty much the only reason. Otherwise, I'd kind of embrace it.
Yeah, you had a good point before when you were talking about just how all the little delays add up. So as you're browsing the internet, everything takes 1 to 3 seconds to load. But if you were in a scenario, or if you were like given the opportunity to click through the internet to where everything literally loads instantly and is ready to be clicked on the next thing, you would be able to tell a huge difference. Like, it wouldn't be a small thing. It'd be a huge leap. So any addition to that latency, compounded on itself, does make a big difference either way, going faster or slower. And in this case, it does happen slower, especially if something like Reddit, which you're kind of scrolling and maybe clicking around a lot in.
Yeah, last time you said that the standard for like, ad agencies and everything was like, if we're under 3 seconds, then that's acceptable. And let's not try to optimize just as long as we're under the threshold of 3 seconds. And, oh, man, like...
Yeah. A lot of like web design places, they'll add lots of, like, JavaScript is the worst for this. They'll add lots of JavaScript where it doesn't need to be added because it's faster, or maybe it's easier in some way, but like faster to build. But it's a lot more like it just takes longer to load or compile or whatever. So it's taking the easy way out, using these different libraries or whatever for animation, rather than building it as fast as possible. So it's always, as long as we're not over 3 or 5 seconds, we're fine. It's never, let's get this as fast as possible.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll leave it at that because we talked about some other stuff. There was some mention last time of Reddit Premium, whatever that entails. So let's just, I guess, cover that real quick.
Yeah, we'll just count this as more of an announcement because I don't know a whole lot about it. But if you're a Reddit Gold member, that's being changed to Reddit Premium. I think Gold might be being changed to something else. And then there's also this whole thing around like buying coins and giving coins. I really like the Reddit redesign, but I think this whole thing I'm not a big fan of this. And I'm somebody that's like, I love change, and I love to, like, I always give change the benefit of the doubt. But so much of the culture around what is now Reddit Premium is around the name Gold. And it's this whole kind of identity that's being given in things like the lounge, and now that I learned the mega lounge and so on. There's like, everything's built around the idea of gold and gilding, and there's lots of gold puns going around, and it's like a nice, fun thing. Something that Reddit usually does really well is just keeping things fun. But then to change it to something like Reddit Premium, it's not a really boring name, something like YouTube would give their paid service, just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And I think it kind of crushes the whole, at least to a certain extent, like just how fun it is to be in those communities and to be able to gild somebody instead of saying, I gave you Reddit Premium. Like, what do you even say there?
Yeah, I'm not sure you'll be able to give Reddit Premium, or if Gold will be like an independent. I don't know. Speaking though, is guild like a word was that a word back when gold miners were a thing? What does that even mean, gilded?
Ugh, I don't know. I have heard of the Gilded Age, but I don't know what that means.
At this time in our last recording, I mentioned that this is somewhat analogous to YouTube, and, constant controversy on YouTube and the adpocalypse, and they're not, just growing as a company and becoming less subservient to their creators. And, people complained a lot, but it kind of worked out, right? Like YouTube's still a thing. It's still good. I don't know. It's not ideal, and maybe people are making less money, and there's, it's a constant battle, but it still exists. And I feel like Reddit going down this road, especially with it being a super community driven platform, I think it'll be all right. But that's just kind of a gut feeling.
I think it'll be all right. It just won't be as fun. Like, people are still going to buy Reddit Premium, but it just takes a little something away. Something that's, I think, is not... it's like somewhat core to like the identity and personality of Reddit. It just takes that away and like shifts it a little bit more corporate. Like, this was a guy that doesn't really know what he's talking about. Like the CFO made this decision or something. We were talking about bloatware, and I talk about Brave a lot, the Brave browser, and I like to talk about this, so I'll just give that a quick plug, is that the Brave browser removes a lot of that tracking stuff, and when you're using the internet using that browser, you can actually tell a difference, and it gives you an estimate on like how much time you've saved and everything. So I don't know, I like it a lot. It's very interesting. It's essentially just Chrome, but it's a custom build of Chrome.
So it's your default browser?
Yeah, on desktop and mobile. Well, obviously not default on mobile, but whenever I go to the web, I'll use that. But if I click to it from something else, obviously it still uses Safari.
Right. Well, actually, I mean, like, some things give you the option of Chrome, so I wonder if maybe that was a special exception, or if any browser can have like a preference assigned to it.
Yeah, I want to say you need to be put in that list of suggestions. It's not like based on like app category or something, but
right.
Brave's getting more popular. Like it hits the top, like near the top of the like App Store charts here and there. So I imagine it'll start being supported once it's fully built. It's still considered in beta.
The couple things about Google that I have, I guess two, because a new one came up since the last time. One, Gmail has now gone through a Reddit-like redesign, which is now the default. And I don't know, it looks kind of cool, but the key thing that I am not sure is implemented or not is this self-destructing. So like their new feature that I think is the biggest change is you can have a message disappear. And I think we talked about it before. But I don't know. It loaded and it took longer to load, and this whole latency thing, I was just like, psh, old Google. And so I just want to make mention of it, basically.
I am on mail.google.com now, just updated, checking it out. But you said you can make it disappear, so like from somebody else's inbox, you can remove your email?
Yeah, we talked about it on here before, I think. I don't know how. I don't know if it's just Google based, or maybe like if they don't have Google, it's like a link and the link breaks after a certain amount of time. I don't know. But it's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I don't use the web clients. I use Spark pretty much everywhere, but so this doesn't affect me too much, but it looks fine.
Yeah. So I don't know. We mentioned it. I don't have a lot of commentary on it. The other Google thing is that recently I used Google Maps, and I haven't had the voice on in a while, so I'm not sure how long this has been the case, but it told me the other day to turn left at the Taco Bell. And I really love that.
Interesting. I do like that.
Yeah. And it was like, here's my theory. I think maybe they have like whitelisted Taco Bell, McDonald's, like the standard fast food places.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's more broad, but I imagine maybe it's just limited to the ones that they, know are definite chains that are definitely there and they can pronounce correctly. And it's so common, so that's like a lot of places, so that they can just say, if this is a major fast food chain, you can just say left at whatever's on the corner.
Yeah. Well, because so often when I'm driving, I'm like, it's hard to see the signs, like the street signs. So you have to like be like all hunched over trying to make sure you don't miss a street sign. I do like that a lot. Apple obviously doesn't do that, and that's what I use. But that's very cool.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. It is graceful. At Google's most recent at the most recent Google I/O, they had a feature that I don't think it's released yet, but it was like an augmented reality. So it has your camera up, but also then it imposes like I think a dog or something, and it like goes around a corner, and you just follow the dog to your destination or whatever. So I
Oh,
appreciate these kind of creative little things. AR, I don't know, battery draining and everything, but turn left at the Taco Bell, that is like a beautiful compromise.
yeah, because that's how you would give directions if I were to tell you how to get somewhere. I did fall down a real little rabbit hole, like right after we posted episode 13 that I can talk through for a minute.
Go ahead.
So, like superstitious things like really get on my nerves, like that people follow them so strictly. Specifically, the number 13, because some of the buildings that I used to work in, they didn't have a 13th floor, and this was like kind of infuriate me because this is like how did this get to be such a thing that there's no 13th floor? So I was looking at the Wikipedia page trying to understand why. I didn't find an answer aside from 13 is an unlucky number, but I did find some interesting like things that people do instead of the 13th floor. So in a lot of the buildings I go in, they'll do or floor 12 and 14. That's kind of the standard. But then some places will do floor 11, 12A, 12B, and then 14. Other places will like 13 won't be on the like elevator, but it'll still be a floor used for like maintenance and stuff. Some places do floor 12, then the letter M because M is the 13th letter, and then 14. Yeah, so it's just like I just really these things just like really get on my nerves, and I'm just like wondering what's your opinion on things like that? Does it bother you as much as it does me? Do you not care? Do you think that 13 is unlucky?
Well, this is interesting because, okay, so full disclosure here, I have caught up now, I think, on Hello Internet, which is the show that kind of inspires this show. Um, and so it's always confusing to me whether this has been talked about recently or whether I just heard it because I was going through my backlog. But I think it was the backlog. And they talked largely about this and how, like, different countries, like, I think 7 or something is an unlucky number because it sounds like the word death in their language. I don't know. Um,
So it sounds like I'm copying, but I'm really not. This was it. Parallel thinking in some way. I did find that 13 is lucky in Italy.
oh,
But yeah, interesting.
I wonder. Yeah. Yeah, I'll just say that M thing sounds silly because that is so not intuitive. I would be like extremely curious to get an elevator with an M on it. But then past that, I don't know. I mean, it's almost kind of fun. It's almost kind of fun. But probably if I were a building owner, yeah, just number it.
Well, the reason I think like people, I guess, are like, okay, we're not going to put 13 because people will get angry about that. And the fact that I think so many people actually think 13 is unlucky is what gets on my nerves. And every time I see that, it reminds me of how people are so superstitious about certain things, or like, I don't know. We don't have to harp on it, but that's just something I started looking a lot into.
Yeah, it's an interesting cultural phenomenon. What is interesting to me, and loosely related, is parking garages having like countries. Have you ever been in like a parking garage and instead of just like a floor and maybe color, it's like a country or something fun?
Yeah.
That's like, I don't know if some research study happened and everyone jumped on board, or maybe just somebody tried it and it worked and now it's the thing, but like it is a better way to do it because you will remember kind of like a more interesting topic than just the color, right? So
Yeah.
I do appreciate when that happens.
Yeah, I do like that a lot. That has like a practical use. So REI, we've been going there a lot. They'll have like trees or water or something else is like the different floor names. So you have like either the color or the like icon or whatever to go off of, and it does make it easy to remember. It's also just like looks better than a big painted 2 on the wall or whatever.
Yeah. Actually, I think if I owned a building, I would label all of the floors 13-1, 13-2.
There you go. I'm going to do that just to make people angry. Then have a 13 floor building where every floor is 13.
Okay. Is there anything else going on with that? With elevator lure?
No, I think that's all the elevator lore talk that I have.
That can be our corner. We've got elevator. It's not even a corner. It's like a box. We've got a box that is elevator related.
Yeah.
But our next box is time. Basically, just I want to talk about time. And this is going to get into my whole like watch progression junk that I do. But you have created a lovely little app, and I want to give that some time.
Oh, yeah. So we kind of don't need it anymore now that Craig's taking care of all this.
Well, but Craig, I'm not really going to use Craig unless terrible things happen. Although I could, in theory, align the audio with the Craig audio.
Yeah, because we haven't done it. Or we could do it now. But basically what this came out of was at the beginning of every episode, Paul and I try to count back from 5 at the exact same time. And it's never exactly right. It does a good enough job, though. The audio is, for the most part, synced. But I tried to make something that could sync the audio for us, which would basically just be we both press a button at the same time, and then or around the same time. It doesn't need to be exactly the same, obviously, or else that would be useful. We would just click record. But and then at the same time, it syncs the audio. And it's a very simple app. It's just white with a blue button in the middle that says sync audio. And when you hit it, it does a little sound. It just sounds like this. And what that does is it'll happen on both tracks, and then you just line up the tracks. You'll see people do this in video using clapping, or like in movies using that black and white thing where they do it's like a box and they clap down the top thing. The way that it works is that it basically, you both press it around the same time, and then it just uses the clock on the phone. So it's completely dependent on all iPhone clocks being exactly the same within like however X milliseconds worth of like error that you're willing to accept. So we both press it around the same time, and it just goes off at the nearest number divisible by 10. So if we both press it at 35 seconds on the minute, it'll go off 5 seconds later at 40. And that's just kind of how it works. I spent like 2 hours the other day building it. It came out fine. But the problem is it seems to work sometimes, but not other times. When we were trying it before, though, we were just having a delay just in Discord, so maybe it was working. But yeah, that's what that is.
Yeah, it's tough to tell with us far apart. But yeah, so just to recap, though, the whole goal here is to just make a sound happen at the exact same time, regardless of where you are. And it's surprisingly hard to do. I don't know. First of all, it is a darn shame if iPhones and iOS devices don't have the exact time, because why not? Like, they're constantly communicating with the internet. Why don't they check every, several hours or some huge amount of time just to see that they have the exact right, atomic time? So really, they should be in sync. And if they're not, that's just annoying. But if they're not, we still have to kind of test it out a bit, I guess, and see if they are or not. But the other possibilities would be, so, iPhones have GPS, and GPS is essentially just sending out an unencrypted timestamp. So in theory, you could use the GPS, and it would be extremely accurate. So that might be a possibility for us. And
that's interesting.
The other thing is you could just find some kind of atomic clock API and, get the time so that you're not reliant on the system time.
Yeah, the core of it's built, and like I said, I could do some things to clean it up, maybe add a little animation, but the core of it's built. If the iPhone clock isn't accurate enough, and then I was going to look for like an atomic clock API. Your point about using GPS is interesting. I hadn't thought about. I'd have to look into that more. But if that could be like the most accurate, maybe I could just do that, and then I would just release it. Mainly because I like the name. It's just Singularity. So
Yeah, I love the name.
And it's already built, so I might as well share it if it works. But
yeah, I think GPS. I have just a feeling that it's going to be a pain in the butt because I imagine Apple just simplifies it and gives you like the coordinates that you're at, and to actually get like the raw received data probably is difficult, but I don't know. And yeah, an atomic clock API, if one exists, which I'm not like entirely sure that it does, would also do great. So either way.
I mean, the iPhone is syncing up with something. Whether or not that's a public API or maybe something that Apple owns, I don't know. It's got to be like, it doesn't need to be exactly the exact right time. It just needs to be exactly the same on both phones.
Which actually kind of brings me to, this is just a thing that I was thinking about the other day, and I don't have an answer for it. But like, why did we? So I get like, okay, clocks came about, and we had noon, and we had 6 p.m., and we had midnight before we had super accurate ways to tell exactly when those times were. And at some point, we decided exactly when midnight was. And my question kind of is like, why isn't midnight half a second or some small fraction of a second shifted, right? Like, how did we decide when a second is, rather than slightly shifted? It's hard to even ask that question.
I'm not quite sure I understand. So I know that, so obviously a day is one rotation of Earth. So that's where you get the hours from. There is a delay, or there is a slight margin of error. That's why we have leap years, because we're off by a quarter of a day every year using the time tracking system that we use. So it isn't exactly right as it is, but it does have a reason, though.
Yeah, no, I guess you just divide that and divide it, and then that's where seconds fall. Yeah.
Yeah, because it has to like add up to the day, and then you're just kind of like creating still arbitrary times. Like an hour could be, 2 hours worth, and a minute could be worth 2 minutes. Like that part is arbitrary, but it all needs to add up to the day number, and then all the day numbers need to add up to the year number because those are kind of fixed in place. It's funny that you mentioned that, though, because I was also thinking about that. Not so much the day, but like, why are weeks 7 days? Like, it would make things more convenient for weeks to be more like 8 or 10 days, like an even number. It would also, like, why don't we have, like, obviously this goes back to whenever the calendar was made thousands of years ago or whatever, but it's like, why don't we update this to 10 months or like an even number of months and the same amount of days in every month and so on? Like, this could be a better system.
Well, I do kind of have an answer for you, Gil, because I've looked into this a bit in the past, and I think the moon is largely related to the reasons, right? So moon syncs up with the months, so that's where you get your 12 months. And the Earth goes around the sun in 1 year, so you get the year from the orbital, period of the Earth. But yeah, the moon is responsible for the months, and then I think just because of the way that it like becomes a full moon over the course of half a month, I forget exactly why, but somehow I'm pretty sure the moon is related to the weeks too. And then of course, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I forget all of it, but like Monday, like MON is moon, Sunday is SUN sun, and I'm pretty sure the other ones are something related to this, like the celestial bodies that were apparent, back when time, the concept of like hours was being invented and all that. So it does all kind of make sense breaking it down. It would be really cool to move to a base 10 kind of 100 minutes in an hour kind of thing, but we're so far gone. It's just entrenched that I don't know that we could.
Yeah, we can't even get on the metric system.
Yeah, let's start with that.
Yeah, once we get to the metric system, then we can worry about reorganizing how like weeks and months are laid out, but it makes sense why it's not. It's just it would be better if it were.
Yeah, well, what's interesting, of all the units across all the countries and all everywhere, time is like the only one that is consistent. I'm not sure any culture, probably. I would love to hear if anyone knows of a culture that has come up with some time increment that is similar to a second but not exactly one. But it seems just crazy synonymous across cultures that a second is a thing, a minute is a thing, an hour is a thing.
Yeah. I don't know why that is. I mean, that's got to be like because of computers to some extent, right? Like, was it always like that?
I think it might have been. I don't know.
I guess computers didn't really exist before like 1960 or whatever, so it had to have been happening before then. But it's like, I don't know. It's crazy. Yeah, I've never really thought about that. What do you think about the time? So time zones are things where people vary. Like, I'm pretty sure all of China is on a single time zone.
Yeah.
There's like India is like at like the half, there's like a half hour difference. It's like, I don't know what it is, like 10 and a half hours or something. And then there's like New Mexico or something like that. It like doesn't abide by daylight savings. Like, everybody kind of does that differently. What are your thoughts on everybody has the same exact time, whatever the UTG time is, or whatever the Greenwich Mean Time is?
Yeah, UTC.
That's just the time everywhere. And people, in Kentucky, they go to work at 9 a.m., but people in Seattle go to work at noon. And everybody's on the same time. What are your thoughts on something like that?
I mean, it's back to we're just entrenched, and it's so hard to change it, even if it would make a tremendous amount of sense, right? Like, so getting rid of daylight savings altogether would probably make a tremendous amount of sense, it seems like.
Yeah, that's the most feasible that I think we can actually get, because that would be very nice. Because why are we losing time? Why are we losing daylight? We need to, if we're going to do daylight savings, let's do it the other way, so that it's like, it doesn't get dark at 5, it gets dark at 7 or whatever now.
Yeah. I was just talking to somebody, and they told me people used to wake up, like, they just used to go to bed when it was dark because you couldn't see anything, and then wake up when it was light because you could see things. And I guess part of that was that that's a lot more than 8 hours, at least at some times of the year. So they would just kind of like wake up and have like a little chat, a little social gathering, I guess. I don't know if this is entirely true. I forget where I even heard this, but I mean, it definitely makes sense that humanity used to just rise and sleep with the...
Yeah, but those people don't exist anymore.
Yeah. But along this topic, we can go in a bit. So I used to have, I still have, a Timex Ironman Sleek 50. And it's a really, I like it. It's a nice watch. A lot of capabilities. It has interval timer and all kinds of stuff. But we talked about how I would really like it to have some kind of countdown to an alarm, is the best way I can put that. Or a mission clock, as I like to call it. Like, like rocket launches, right? So the countdown to launch, which is like the event. And then after that, they count up.
Yeah.
And I have recently discovered that I don't even see people use them like this very much, but technically watches with bezels, so watches, that you can, you know what I mean when I say that? Like rotating. Have you seen these ones? Like kind of fancier watches, like Rolexes and stuff?
Yeah, we talked about this on the last episode.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So basically, you can use that to just mark a time. So 6:30, you just point it at the bottom of the watch. And I guess the update here is that I bought myself a Casio MRW 200H, and watches never have great names, at least the Casios. But it is the $15 version, like the cheapest thing that you can get that has a rotating bezel. And it's not even a clicky bezel, it's just like friction rubber. So, it doesn't like have increments, it's just wherever it lands. But I'm really liking it. Like almost, I don't know. I go back and forth, I guess, on these two watches, but to have especially just not having to deal with like a digital thing. And it's not a lot to deal with the button pressing on my little digital watch, but to just have a bezel that you rotate and it's just super intuitive is really nice. And so that's where I'm at on that.
Yeah, that would be the only, like, I'd have to get like an Omega or a Rolex to switch away from the Apple Watch. But I've always wanted a watch that like did that. I mean, obviously you can buy cheap ones or cheaper ones. That's not like a $5,000 watch, but I have always wanted that, and I feel like I would use that. And you might like this, but I've bought a like $10 watch.
Ooh.
This is exclusively for backpacking because the Apple Watch just simply does not last nearly long enough.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I go, it's like, we get to the top and I don't know, like I have to pull out my phone to see what time it is every time, but it's like in my backpack. So now I have this really cheap rubber, just like classic kind of digital watch, and I haven't used it yet, but I imagine I'm going to really like it. It's got some small, the classic digital watch features, timers and things like that I'm going to use for things like, if this is a 5-hour hike, I'll set a timer for 5 hours just to kind of give me a gauge of where we are on the trail. So I'm looking forward to having that.
Yeah, it would be cool to have actually, like, this is a cool feature. Like, what if you could set 5 hours, but instead of telling me the time remaining, just tell me the percent of that time remaining?
Yeah, that would be nice.
But then again, you kind of get that with the bezel, right? So if you set, it's weird because like the bezels usually are for the minute hand, but you could set it to the hour hand, right? So you could set it 5 hours ahead of the hour hand, and then just look at the hour hand and see, okay, how much has it moved, kind of, and you would get a vague idea of the percentage from that. That's a neat idea.
And even more, so we talked about this before too when we were talking about watches, but there's a watch that's a single hand and it's just a 24-hour watch, so there's 24 marks around the outer rim.
Right.
And there are no minute hands. It's just if it's kind of like the time up to the nearest 15-minute mark based off of if it's past 1 at the first notch, and then it's 1:15 or somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So having the rotating bezel around that also would give you an even more accurate version of that, to where you could set it to the minute that you started or the minute that you're going to. And as long as it doesn't last longer than a day, you can see without having to keep track of, okay, 2 hours have passed, so it's 2 hours plus the 15 minutes past the notch. I don't know, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, so what you're talking about was the slow watch that we talked about last time, and I think, so I've since discovered a new one that's called like the Singmeister, and I will put that in the show notes because it might not be called that, but it also is like, I think it's just, well, no, I don't remember. It might be 12 hours, but either way, it just has an hour hand basically is the thing about it. So it's kind of an interesting, and it's really cool looking kind of watch.
Yeah, that would work just as well because you're going to know what 12-hour mark you're at.
Yeah.
So just the one hand, which I guess you could just do. You just take the minute hand off of a regular watch.
Let me throw out a couple recommendations here because I've been scouring the internet. And so first off, we have this MRW200H Casio watch, which is available at Walmart, and it's $20. Probably get it for 15 if you try hard enough. And like I said, it has a rotating bezel, and it's probably the cheapest thing you'll get that has a rotating bezel. So I like it. I actually even like got the one that has no white except for the hands, and then colored the marker with a Sharpie to be white. So now I have like, if I just mentally ignore every color but white, I can see very easily what the alignment is. But then since I got that watch, I have discovered a couple others, which, again, I am trying to stay like as cheap as possible and just functionality, right? So the Casio Duro it looks like a Rolex. It looks like a dive watch. It has a dive bezel, which means that basically it counts from, there's a marker, and then it counts, up to 60 across the whole bezel, right? So it's a lot like the watch itself, right? So it's a marker at the 1 o'clock position that says 5 for 5 minutes, and it keeps going until 60 all the way around. And that thing is like $45, which is super cheap. It's actually like water resistant to like reasonable dive depths. And from what I understand, it is like the actual dive watch that actual divers use. I mean, they usually probably just use a computer, like a dive computer.
Yeah.
But as a backup, because computers can fail, they do probably, as I understand it, use the Casio Dura, because what you really want diving is a cheap thing that you don't care about, but that will work. And so that thing looks beautiful.
I'm looking it up now.
Yeah, it looks, you wouldn't really even know that it wasn't a $1,000 watch.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it looks nice. It looks like a nice standard kind of watch.
Mm-hmm. And it's yeah, that is like, I think Casio was like, let's make a watch that divers can actually use, and that's what they did, and it's great.
Yeah, up to 200 meters.
The third thing that I would recommend here that I learned about today is a watch called I got to think about it, Huckberry. So Huckberry is like the company that sells it, and it is called the Pilot Mission Timer. And I cannot find it for sale anywhere. But that thing, the difference of it is also very simple and doesn't have a lot of, stuff going on, and like, it's very simple, right? But what it does is it has a countdown timer. And the countdown timer is what I most want. So the dive timer, basically what you do is you align the main marker on the watch with the minute hand, and then it tells you how long, like how much time has elapsed, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But what I really want is to put the marker at a time. So if I want to set a 15-minute timer, I would align the marker 15 minutes ahead of wherever the minute hand is currently. And if it's a dive timer, then you have to kind of think backwards, because it'll say 55, 50, 45. And so you really have to align 45 with the minute hand. Whereas if it's a countdown timer, it's like the opposite, and it will go 5, 10, 15. So this watch that I just said, though, is the only freaking watch that I can find in the world that is quartz, which just quartz is like it's basically electronic, and it has a battery, and it uses a quartz crystal, and it's accurate, right? Super accurate. Whereas like mechanical watches, literally inferior in every way. It's cool to think that you have like a just purely mechanical device on your wrist, but if it's purely mechanical, you have to service it very frequently. It's less accurate about time. It's more expensive. It's like every way quartz is better. So I wanted a quartz countdown timer watch, and the Pilot Mission Timer by Huckberry is the only watch in the world that meets the quartz countdown bezel requirements.
Just to clarify the difference between that and the Casio has the numbers around the edges, but it's meant as a time sense timer. So so the time goes clockwise, 5, 10, 15, 20, whereas the Huckberry goes counterclockwise to 5, 10, 15, 20. So it's just in the reverse way, so you could set it as a timer.
Exactly. So these are my recommendations for watches, and it's just been it's been a cool discovery process, because I don't want to become one of these people that's like buying a $1,000 or several $1,000 just mechanical watch that has less features or just looks cool. I just don't ever let me become that. I mean, it's neat, and I guess if you're in a position where you need that status symbol, which does exist, right? Like if you're some kind of executive or whatever, that's helpful.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I really feel like this is a prime example of sort of buying into just marketing, because that Casio Duro is great, and it's $45. It's like 2 orders of magnitudes below, Rolexes and things like that. So
yeah. Well, just to play the other side a little bit, there is, and I think we've talked about this before too, but there is something different about the Omega Seamaster or a Rolex than a typical quartz, Casio watch. It's much more difficult to manufacture. It's more of an art. It's not meant to be purely functional. It's meant to be, I mean, I guess it is. It's meant to be reliable. It's meant to last a long time. It's meant to be very functional, but it's also kind of an art piece for a lot of people. And there are people that are into nice watches the same way that there are people into nice cars, or the same reason somebody might think that I'm crazy for buying like $100 bottle of whiskey. It's just like some people are just kind of into that, and I can see that. But to your point, the cheaper option, like purely from a functional standpoint, is better at what it does.
Here's my thing. Yes, you can. So like with all of the things, right? First of all, I really feel like mechanical is inferior, and the only upside is thinking that there's a cool watch on your wrist, like a cool device that is just mechanical. But that doesn't do it for me. Maybe it does it for some people, but even $100 bottle of whiskey, it's like, what could you have done with that $100 instead of buying a bottle of whiskey? Like, not that much. You could have gone to a nice dinner maybe, so it's like, it's comparable. What could you have done instead of buying a $10,000 Rolex? Like, so much shit, to the point
there's a
that,
whole different scale.
Yeah, I can't get into it, but there are people, and maybe you just have ridiculous amounts of disposable income, or you are in a position where that kind of status symbol matters, and then it does make sense, but I think it's pretty rare.
This is unrelated aside from things that cost a lot of money, but I was recommended this video on YouTube, and I didn't know that this was a thing, but apparently you can just buy like mystery boxes on eBay.
Oh.
And it's just like full of random stuff. And the video was of a guy that bought a $100,000 mystery box, and the most expensive item in it was a watch that was $50,000, but everything else was added up to like $2,000. So he got like $55,000 worth of stuff for $100,000. And to get to the point where you're buying a $100,000 box on eBay and you have no idea what's in it, it's like depressing.
I've heard of these mystery boxes and like, $20, and it's like, what do you get every month? It's a mystery. But there are ones that go up to like $100,000. Wow.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
So I watched one. I'll never watch it again because I just really hate it. But I just thought like, what is this video?
That's crazy. All right, I got one more thing on the time discussion, Gil, and that is my smoke alarm.
Oh, okay.
So I think I mentioned it before, but I've got some developments here. Entirely by accident, but the smoke alarm that is in my room is broken. I don't know if it's out of battery or what. Probably it's out of battery. But what it does is, I timed it. Every 30 seconds, it will make a beep. And it's not just like an alarm clock or like a little baby beep. It's like, you know how alarms or a smoke alarm is if it's blaring, right? It's like really annoying.
Yeah.
Well, it's still really annoying if it's just a short little beep. And that's what it does. It does a short little beep that is like really loud. And so what happens is, completely by accident, this smoke alarm, I think it's like every like maybe 10 hours, it's like lost. You remember how they had to type in that code every so often?
Yeah.
So I don't know why, but this smoke alarm, if you don't press the button for 10 hours, or like maybe, I don't know exactly, but 8 to 10 hours or something, it will start to do this beeping again. So every 30 seconds, it will do a beep that is like super annoying, but it's just a beep, right? It's not like blaring and continuous. And it has turned into the most marvelous alarm clock, because basically, before I go to bed or whenever, I press the button and then I go to bed. And then, before I wake up, it'll bzz, beep. And it's not like, I'm not even conscious of why I'm awake, right? Like, I wake up and then after the 30 seconds or whatever, I hear the alarm and I reason, oh, this is why I've been awoken. It's not like perceivable that the alarm is waking you up. And then on top of all that, you then have to get out of bed, and because it's mounted on the ceiling, I have to kind of jump to press the button to turn it, like to snooze it, essentially.
I used to be so bad at like hitting the snooze button that I had to put my alarm clock across the room so that I had to get up and go turn it off.
I just love, entirely by accident, this thing has become just an amazing alarm clock. And so I'm actually like, I don't want them to fix it anymore. I don't know if it still works as a because it still has power. So I imagine it still like is an alarm or a smoke alarm. But I don't know. Maybe I'll get a second one. It's working really well.
Is it plugged in, or like that's typically what happens when you're low on battery, but some of them just in like apartments will just plug into.
I don't think it is. I think it just, well, I don't know, because I did take the battery out of one in one of the other rooms here.
Okay.
And it continued to stay on. So I don't know if it has like a capacitor thing or if it is, this thing is a mystery to me. Like, I don't understand how it works.
It has batteries, but it doesn't need it.
Yeah. It works well as an alarm clock.
Do we want to do our words?
Oh, yeah. We forgot about the words. Let's do the words. Go ahead.
Okay, so the vote this time is going to be for the word for show notes. So show notes is what's referred to as the notes that the listeners click on when they want to click on a link to something, but it's also like the show notes refers to what like Paul and I are using as kind of like what we're going to talk about on the show. My example, much like last week, is very boring. So I'm going to do mine first and then you can go ahead. So my word is going to be, show notes is going to be for the notes that the listeners click on under the show, just because that just sounds better than description, I think. I think that would be like kind of like the YouTube equivalent. They would say description. And then what you and I go through for doing the podcast is just the agenda.
Okay. I kind of like that. It's got a flow to it.
Yeah, so it already exists. It's already kind of what that word's meant for, but that's my idea. You could do some sort of podcast pun, like podgenda or agenda cast. I don't know. I'm just going to stick with agenda.
I think you've got something there with incorporating, like making it specific to podcasts, because it is kind of only a scenario that happens in podcasts, or at least, discussions back and forth, which largely I think is podcasts. But yeah, mine is sort of equally unexciting, and maybe we're not there yet, right? But like, I wanted to preserve notes because that's what they are. They are notes.
Yeah. And
so show notes is what people see in the description of the episode or wherever. I think, and I wanted something almost that rhymes with show notes, and I couldn't really find something that directly rhymes. So what I came up with was host notes.
Oh, okay.
It's not exciting. It's pretty direct about it, but I think it does an all right idea. Like, oh, this is the notes for the hosts to kind of discuss the episode, whereas then the show notes are like once it's a show that people can look at. So I don't know. It's a little bit differentiated there, I guess.
Yeah. No, I like that. And it's kind of like you said, matches with the show notes, but it's also something that's not used for anything else. So it could be specific to podcast.
Yeah, I feel like agenda could be really good if you somehow blended some other word into it, like
show agenda, host agenda,
like some kind of what is it when two words just get kind of mashed together? Is it like a portmanteau? Portmanteau? Yeah. So I feel like that has a lot of potential, and agenda's not bad on its own. But if it were made podcast specific, that'd be ideal.
Yeah, I was having trouble I was trying to do that, like mix in something with agenda, but nothing was really sounding good.
Yeah. All right. Well, we tried.
That's all you can do.
Maybe I don't know. What words should we end on here?
What kind of words? Like, should we like say to some sort of call to action?
That's what my dad said. Like because I talked to my dad and he said, I wish she would not just suddenly end. And this is actually criticism that I had of Hello Internet recently. I posted on the r/Hello Internet where I kind of hate that there is like 2 whole minutes of silence prior to like little bonus audio,
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. Sometimes a lot of people I think are listening to podcasts on their phone in their car. And if even whatever your scenario is, or, you hear people write in that are like flying fighter jets and all this and all kinds of situations. If you hear 30 unbroken seconds of silence, it's going to encourage you to look at your phone. So I don't like that, but I don't know if I have anything particularly against ending on just a word.